I'm actually going to check if he's running it. Let's see. Alright, so he's not going to be running Vortex. No Vortex shenanigans. I know last night that Hottedtko was playing a lot of threes. I was watching from somebody else's point of view, him living for a really, really long time. And he wasn't playing Turbo, he was playing like TSG and living for a really
Oh,
long time.
he is
So
going to be playing with Hottedtko again. That's interesting. All
getting
right.
the extra healing would be really good. But double shockwave already landed by Lossa here. Not going to let these melee cross the center of the map. Leafea pre-hotting his entire team. Double freedom comes in. Hottedtko knows what's up. He's already in bear form with Hots, prepared for the swap here, laying down the Trents as well. Stampeding Roar. Muggz taking some pressure. Fear on the Leafea. He's actually going to trinket that to throw the Iron Bark onto Muggz here. Bladestorm being popped by Lossa, but no recklessness just yet. Baiting that Iron Bark out of Leafea, but now the Gargoyle is coming out to unleash the onslaught onto Hottedtko here. Is camping in the bear form with Hots. He knows he's the primary kill target.
He does, he does. He is just staying out of line of sight as best he can, but now they're going to connect. There's the full Hodge. He is in bear form with Ironbark, but is it enough? This is Wings and Breath coming out from this Vanguards cleave. Execution sentence falling on him. There's the silence out of it. He's in cat form. He's trying to get away desperately, and he finally does. It looks like Hottedtko is going to live for now, but he gets gripped back in. Wings are still active. He's going to get away once again, but he's dipping down to 50% health here. The Wings did get that Ironbark, but they didn't even get Nature Swiftness out of that, which is a big deal. That was all their offensive cooldowns, but they're trying to push back in. Lossa getting offensive with that recklessness. There's the shockwave on the Muggz. He's dipping lower and lower. Leafea just trying to keep his team offensive. Nature Swiftness going out. Both Mdoel and Muggz are taking the damage. Even Leafea is forced to use that Barkskin. Muggz pushing in though at low health. Is this going to be a bubble? Iron Bark coming out for Muggz, and it's going to be overlapped with the bubble. That's a big deal coming out for Call of Karma. They really got to spread these defensive cooldowns out so they can consistently stay offensive. But now Leafea getting cleaved down by this turbo as well. It's looking grim for Call of Karma.
Yeah, Ironbark was wasted there. We've seen Muggz go down a couple times without bubbling, so I don't blame Leafea for throwing the Ironbark onto him, but it was an overlap nonetheless. Hottedtko seems to be fine. He has both his Barkskins and his Trinket, every cooldown available. He's going to want to save those for the Hodge Strangulate combination that could potentially be available here shortly. They don't have the big damage. They're probably going to wait for Avenging Wrath to come off CD, but with no bubble and no Trinket, no Ironbark, Muggz is looking like he could be in trouble. Full bash out from Hottedtko onto Leafea, maybe looking for a Hex, lands the full Hex now as well. Muggz execution sentences himself defensively. Wogs as well, going to bop. Could get purged off here. He's going to rebuff to try and protect it. Well played by Muggz here to protect that bop as long as possible, just spamming the Blessing of Might. He's going to keep that bop long enough for Leafea to leave the CC, but Leafea's mana at 30%. Hottedtko in a good position with full Hots behind the pillar in bear form. Triple Fear going to be landed. Model's going to Lichborn out of that. Avenging Wrath coming up in 14 seconds. They're going to have to make a miracle happen to get through all of these cooldowns.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The triple shockwave coming out from Lossa, just peeling this DPS completely. And then there's the DR Cyclone going out onto Leafea. Muggz taking some pressure. The Ironbark's going to be forced out as well. Hottedtko just doing his best to just really line of sight this DPS and let his DPS just do some work on these guys. And it's really difficult for these guys to connect. But there's the full Hodge as I say that. The breath is coming out the wings as well. This is Barkskin in bear form, but is this going to be enough? And it looks like it. The double shockwave comes out. The silence goes out onto Hottedtko. Barskin's going to fall soon. He's at 50% health here. If this team can connect, it could be over right here, right now. The offensive execution sentence going out onto Hottedtko. He's going to nature swiftness himself and get away from these guys as fast as humanly possible, but they're on their tail, but that wings are going to fall, and the breath is going to stop. Hottedtko, he's feeling okay right now. He still has his trinket. He still has his iron bark. The DR bash goes out onto Muggz. He's going to wall up here as he's taking a bit of pressure. Lossa is going to get slowed down by this DK at the same time, but I mean, it's just so difficult for this double DPS or this double melee, call it Karma, to connect to Hottedtko.
Yeah, he still has his Trinket Ironbark available, and really, this Call It Karma team sets up the perfect one-shot, and they're not getting cooldowns outside of it, so unless they can find some way to get that Barkskin prior to it, I really don't see him going down, and they definitely need cross-CC on Tony when it happens. A bash now onto Tony. Leafea getting feared. He's not going to be able to chain the CC. Tony going for a Hex out of the full fear. Muggz could feel some pressure right now. The Strangulate comes out onto Hottedtko here. The Gargoyle is out as well, punishing him very hard. He's going to have to line of sight in bear form. Use that Barkskin, and he is Barkskinning prior to Avenging Wrath. There's going to be about a 3-second window. As I say that, though, Muggz dipping to 30% HP. The Ironbark getting put on him by Leafea. The NS comes out as well. But the later this game goes, it's just getting better and better for Tony from the Bronx. A bash now onto Model. Hottedtko just camping the bear form full hot. So he does get hodged out of form. You might want to trinket this. Gargoyle is still up for a few more seconds. Tony giving him some big heals, though. Now Muggz at 30% has one more bop remaining. And Leafea has tapped on mana. 3% remaining. Gets locked out charge. He's going to bop himself. He needs to protect protect this bop as long as he can. He's spamming the rebuffs once again, off-healing himself. Leafea is going to have to find a moment here to drink. It looks like he might be pulling back here shortly on the opposite side of the pillars here. I'm not sure if they're really even going to care about this drink. He goes for the Shadow Melt, drinking out of last side, but the Hurricane comes out from Hottedtko, denying that drink, keeping him low at 7%, and all Tony from the Bronx has to do right now is damage.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Leafea is just getting tapped from these enhancement Shaman purges. There's the Hodge on the Hottedtko, though. He wasn't human. That's going to force the Trinket and the Ironbark. The Silence coming out on top of it. They're breathing all over him, but is it going to be enough? I mean, they're doing so well. Tony doing a great job off-healing as well. But Hotted's in trouble. He's going to use that Nature Swiftness. He's going to be okay. Muggz, though, taking a bit of pressure. Leafea just going to answer with the Ironbark, but Leafea is just tapped on mana. There's not much they can do. Muggz is just in trouble, dipping down to 30% health there. He doesn't have a bubble for 50 more seconds. The Hodge goes out onto Hottedtko, but he's at full health here. It's just looking helpless for Call It Karma. Leafea is going to go into execution sentence, and Lossa is just going to secure that kill. And Tony from the Bronx going to take a convincing first map. There it is, man. There it is. I'm excited to see what this Call It Karma is going to do. Like, right after you said that, Supatis, right after you said they need a cross CC Tony Jr., you saw the Bash Hodge go out, as almost as if they knew what you were thinking. It was actually pretty incredible. So hopefully they realize that Tony Jr. is a huge asset to Hottedtko surviving. But
a small thing that happened that if they can do consistently, they don't really have a lot of cross CC, right? Bash is a minute cooldown. Right. It could be hard to get clones. But what I saw the Death Knight model doing was he stole a Hex at one point, and he knows when he's going to Hex. He's not just going to go for it with nothing. It's when he's feared or when he's stunned on Leafea, he's going to go for a Hex. And most likely he's not going to fake cast it. He doesn't always have a lot of time to fake cast it. So if you can Dark Sim the Hex, save it, then when you've got a Hodge for the Druid, Hex the Enhance, you've denied the healing and isolated them. And that's really what you have to do against Turbo. If you don't isolate somebody, they're just too tanky, and they'll just stay alive and just roll over you eventually. So it's up to them to find a way to do it, but that's something that I saw them do a little bit of, which I think they could do more consistently. And if they can try to find a way to do that, they could take him down, but it looked convincing nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. So I communicated with these teams to see whether or not Tony's going to change his composition. He is the winning team, so he does have to announce his composition to the losing team to see if the losing team could have some sort of composition advantage. But both teams going to stick with the same comps, it looks like, and the next map is going to be on Ruins of Lordaeron, chosen by Call It Karma. So, I mean, on Ruins of Lordaeron, it doesn't really give the Druid too much breathing room. I mean, it's going to be a little bit different, but we're going to see what happens. Maybe this Vanguards cleave can make something happen on a smaller map. We're about to find out here in just a few in just 1 hot minute, all right? Welcome back, everybody. We are on Ruins of Lordaeron. We have Call It Karma, the underdog team, coming from the qualifiers, going up against one of the best teams that's ever competed in GCD. Tony from the Bronx, a previous GCD champion, I might add, running mostly KFC, which is quite impressive. But here we go. 14 seconds until these gates open.
I'd like to see Call It Karma putting pressure on a different target, at least to like get HOTS switched off, because he just sits in bear and has HOTS. You're not going to kill him. You need to be a little bit more creative than that, I think. At least Hottedtko knows what's up, and he's not going to let it get past him. He's already fully hotted. Model crossing the map past the tomb. Muggz fully hotted right now. Leafea going into stealth now, rolling the hots once again. Hottedtko already camping the bear form with hots rolling, popping some Trents down as well. He has to make sure that he's in bear form. If he gets stunned out of form, he's going to have to trinket immediately. Pre-iron barking the gargoyle here. Muggz is going to trinket the shockwave to get some pressure rolling. Vortex comes down onto Hotted, but he's just going to move out of it. He blinks away. He gets grit back into the Breath of Cindergosa, as well as the Avenging Wrath, now into the Strangulate. Tony giving him a big heal. Strangulate's still up for a few more remaining seconds. A DR pet stun now, as well as both of them connect here. He still has Barkskin. He's got to make sure he saves it for the next attack here, but he's still getting chunked. Soul Reaper's going to tick. Tony throwing another heal out to him. Hotted cutting back to the room here as a triple shockwave was landed by Lossa. Now the Recklessness coming out, trying to apply the pressure. It's going to be Iron Bark by Leafea. Cooldowns traded from both sides, and this game looking a bit more convincing for Call It Karma.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty scary there for Hottedtko, but can they make it happen again? Lossa just doing work and making sure that Muggz can't get anywhere. Tony keeping those purges up, taking those Hand of Freedoms off fairly quickly, which kind of just leaves Muggz to just hit the DPS here. But Leafea and Muggz sitting back, the double shockwave again coming out from Lossa on both of these guys. Muggz dipping down to 40% health here, and it looks like Mdoel is in the back there just trying to put the pressure onto Hottedtko. Well, Muggz puts the pressure on the DPS. I'm not sure how I feel about this strat. We're about to see what's going to go on. I mean, this reminds me of the Windwalker DK. Walking Dead, their kind of strat. But as I say that, Muggz is going to convene here onto Hottedtko. Hottedtko being smart, sitting in that bear form, pre-iron barking himself once again here as the pressure is just starting to roll onto him. But I don't know, man. I mean, there wasn't a Garg, there wasn't anything up, and the wings is coming up in 40 seconds. That could be scary. There's the Hodge into human form. This is really scary. Barkskin coming out, but is that going to be enough? Hottedtko still dipping relatively low, but Tony Jr. helping him out a bit. The silence, the grit back as well, the vortex. But Muggz at the same time is taking some pressure.
I almost wish he didn't strangulate there. They got both skins prior to Avenging Wrath coming up, and if they saved that to chain it with the Hodges coming up in 7 seconds, they could take him down. He doesn't have a trinket. Now that they don't have the strangulate, they're not going to have as long of a CC chain to take Hottedtko down. Muggz is feeling some pressure. He's still trying to push in and get the kill here. Leafea almost completely tapped on mana once again at 17%. Lossa's going to charge and put up the rend, just applying dots to everyone to tap the mana even harder here. I believe the Cyclone being interrupted. Leafea trying to go for it once again. He does fake cast the Reflect. Not going to be getting that Cyclone reflected back into his face. Muggz getting bashed. The Colossus Smash is going to come up onto him. A bunch of damage follow-up as well. 50% HP. Leafea now at 8% mana, and that's really the story of the side from Call It Karma. They just can't keep the momentum going. Hottedtko's going to pre-Ironbark here as Avenging Wrath has become available. Gargoyle available in 26 seconds as well. Leafea getting swapped to, though, has to Barkskin Displacer Beast at 50% HP. Tony's just going to swap back over to Muggz at 40%. It's looking very grim for Call It Karma.
Yeah, Call It Karma, they're going to have to pull off a miracle at this point. The bubble even being forced out of Muggz, as Lossa does have that recklessness up. I mean, the only way I can see Call It Karma winning this at this point is catching Hottedtko in human form in the Hodge. There's the full Hodge on the Hottedtko, but he's in bear form, and this is the wings coming out and the breath and everything. They're putting all their eggs in one basket, but is it going to be enough? Hottedtko doing a great job just really tanking out this damage as much as possible. He's going to blink away from this wings and the breath, and now just the consistent pressure from this turbo and the purges are just putting just so much issues on Leafea. I mean, he's at 1% mana right now. 1% mana. The clock is now ticking for this Call It Karma team, and Hottedtko is just constantly kiting these guys. But there's the Hodge in the human form. If anything was going to happen, it's going to be right now. But Muggz, so defensive, he has to block, or he has to bop himself, and just not going to do any damage.
Leave.
They're just going to actually leave the game.
He's at 1% mana. There's no way.
Rest in pepperonis, Vanguard's dream. But I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to shout out these guys. Shout out Call It Karma. They fought quite well, and this is their very first GCD